Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Om.
Om.
Hum.
Hum.
Okay, welcome everybody to the last Sangha night in March 2021. And yes, so tonight marks the beginning of a new phase in our teaching, phase in our series, if you like, for Sangha night. And it's going to be based on the 5 spiritual faculties, okay, which are faith, vigor or energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And we've given it the broad title of the Mandala of personal development. And we're very fortunate to have Arya Varchin sort of set us off on the new series tonight, where he's going to be looking at faith, or Shraddha, Sanskrit word for faith, Shraddha. And the talk that he will be doing after we've meditated and after the break, about 8:25, is called A Confident Heart. Very bold title, which I really liked, A Confident Heart. And in some ways, I can't help feeling Arya Varchin is so well placed to be delivering a talk with a title of that kind. So thank you, Arya Varchin, in preparation for the talk later tonight. So that will be after the break at 8:25. So between now and then, we're going to be doing a dedication ceremony tonight. And the dedication ceremony, again, helps to mark this new series on the Mandala of personal development. So I'll be leading that in a moment. And the community at the centre in Nottingham will be doing the responses. So again, you'll all be muted and you just follow the responses that we will have, and hopefully it will feel like there's a gathering of us. Sort of helps to feel that we're all together, hearing a choir of voices in response, which I'm looking forward to. And then I'm going to be, after the dedication ceremony, I'm just going to be sharing a poem and a little text, if you like. Not a text from Bhante, I need to be clear on that point, but some thinking around Bhante and personal development and the unfolding nature of development and practice. So I'll be sharing that. And then we're going to be doing the mindfulness of breathing. And that will take us just up to about 8:10, when we will have a tea break. Okay. So just getting ready for a little ritual to mark our new series on the Mandala of personal development. So just settling down, Again, being call and response, and you just follow the call as led by the community. Dedication ceremony. We dedicate this place to the three jewels.
We dedicate this place to the three jewels.
To the Buddha.
To the Buddha.
The ideal of enlightenment to which we aspire.
The ideal of enlightenment to which we aspire.
To the Dharma.
To the Dharma.
The path of the teaching which we follow.
The path of the teaching which we follow.
To the Sangha.
To the Sangha.
The spiritual fellowship with one another which we enjoy.
The spiritual fellowship with one another which we enjoy.
Here may no idle word be spoken.
Here may no idle word be spoken.
Here may no unquiet thought disturb our minds.
Here may no unquiet thought disturb our minds.
To the observance of the 5 precepts.
To the observance of the 5 precepts.
We dedicate this place.
We dedicate this place.
To the practice of meditation.
To the practice of meditation.
We dedicate this place.
We dedicate this place.
To the development of wisdom.
To the development of wisdom.
We dedicate this place.
We dedicate this place.
To the attainment of enlightenment.
To the attainment of enlightenment.
We dedicate this place.
We dedicate this place.
Though in the world outside there is strife.
Though in the world outside there is strife.
Here may there be peace.
Here may there be peace.
Though in the world outside there is hate.
Though in the world outside there is hate.
Here may there be love.
Here may there be love.
Though in the world outside there is grief.
Though in the world outside there is grief.
Here may there be joy.
Here may there be joy.
Not by the chanting of the sacred scriptures.
Not by the chanting of the sacred scriptures.
Not by the sprinkling of holy water.
Not by the sprinkling of holy water.
But by our own efforts towards enlightenment.
But by our own efforts towards enlightenment.
We dedicate this mandala.
We dedicate this mandala.
Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the lotus petals of purity open.
May the lotus petals of purity open.
Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the Vajra wall of determination extend.
May the Vajra wall of determination extend.
Around this mandala.
Around this mandala.
This sacred spot.
This sacred spot.
May the flames that transmute samsara into nirvana arise.
May the flames that transmute samsara into nirvana arise.
Here seated.
Here seated.
Here practicing.
Here practicing.
May our mind become Buddha.
May our minds become Buddha.
May our thoughts become Dharma.
May our thoughts become Dharma.
May our communication with one another be Sangha.
May our communication with one another be Sangha.
For the happiness of all beings.
For the happiness of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
For the benefit of all beings.
With body, speech and mind.
With body, speech and mind.
We dedicate this mandala.
We dedicate this mandala.
4 gifts. I come to you with 4 gifts. The first gift is a lotus flower. Do you understand? My second gift is a golden net. Can you recognize it? My third gift is a shepherd's round dance. Do your feet know how to dance? My fourth gift is a garden planted in a wilderness. Could you work there? To develop means to unfold gradually, just as a flower unfolds, stage by stage, petal by petal from the bud. To develop means to evolve. It means to pass through a succession of stages or states, each of which is prefatory to the next. It means to expand by a process of growth. It means to change gradually from a lower to a higher state of being. This is what it means by develop. What is meant by development? And development, as we can very quickly see, as we can very quickly recognize, is the law of life. Mindfulness of breathing. Okay, so over to Zach. Thank you, Zach.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to say something in the way of a Dharna appeal. So yeah, you may have noticed a few new faces in the Sangha in these last 6 months. And that's largely due to the several introduction courses and follow-on courses that we've run online during this period of lockdown and restriction. it's really amazing, actually, what we've done here in the Nottingham Buddhist Centre, like reaching out to a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access the centre. So many people that I hear when we do these introduction courses say, oh, we simply couldn't get to the centre if it wasn't for these online courses. And yeah, all of a sudden our reach, the distance in which we're able to share the Dharma has increased quite dramatically. And all of this has taken a lot of effort and time, much of which is readily volunteered by members of the Sangha, just serving a need, you know. So our Sangha is growing, is what I'm sort of trying to say. And I personally find this, what we've been doing in the pandemic, sort of very deeply inspiring, actually. It shows that what we have meets a need, and also how adaptable we are, and how well we work as a team, how well we work as a Sangha in many ways. But all of this has required, you know, a great amount of energy. As you can imagine, we've had to essentially go from an online presence or no online presence to online presence big time, like that, our only means of communicating the Dharma. So that's meant new equipment, and that's ultimately meant time, a lot of time and energy, and a lot of volunteering. Yeah, and I find that just very deeply inspiring. And if you feel inspired to give in response to that, I strongly encourage you. You know, these online aspects of the Sangha is definitely, you know, is going to be carrying on. You know, we've been discussing with Gareth in the community recently about our plans to reopen the centre, but this online aspect is going to continue to really be an important part of our output at the Nottingham Centre. So I know many of you give already in standing orders. If you feel as though you can increase that, if you can afford that, that would be, of course, very appreciated. And if you just feel inspired for one-off donation, I would just strongly encourage you to act on that heart response so that we can keep growing the Sangha, and we can just keep doing what we're doing, you know. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Zach. And so yeah, we'll now go into the tea break, and R.A. Varchin will be doing his talk at 8:25. So if you want to come and bring your tea or your hot drink or even your cold drink, you know, and share it with others on screen, then you're most welcome to do that. Okay.
Because when he gets stuck in, he gets stuck in. And to have him doing a whole series of these 5 talks is just a joy. I'm really looking forward to these next few weeks, hearing all of the different ways of winding into this subject that I'm sure we'll find. One thing I've learned about R.A. Varchin is that his talks are usually jam-packed with little jewels and wisdom nuggets. And the great thing about it is, folks, this time you won't have to have your pen steaming trying to keep up with it. It's going to be recorded so we can listen to it at leisure again and find all those little jewels that I'm sure will come up. So thank you so much for this series in advance, R.A. Varchin. And I really look forward to hearing your heart response and Shraddha tonight.
Thank you, sister. It's great. It's great to be with all of you tonight. It's great also to see some old friends coming back. So very, very special welcome to Amanda and David tonight. I'm very glad to see you here. Yes, so we've been exploring in the last few weeks this whole area of wisdom. Yeah, so we really wanted to go deeper in this area, and we'll carry on exploring the whole area of wisdom after this series that I'm starting tonight. So as Padmasaki just said very kindly in her very kindly words, I'm going to be doing this exploration in the next 5 weeks, starting tonight. And the idea is that we are looking more deeply at views, basically, yeah, and how views influence the way that we are, even shape the way that we are in the world. So I'm going to be sharing with you a teaching that is very dear to me. It's very central to my practice, and it's something that I've been exploring in my practice for the last 8 years, I would say. And yeah, in a way, it's still unfolding. Yeah, I'm still learning many new things. So at the moment, I'm taking part of an online retreat with Kamala Shila, that maybe some of you know of. He's mostly a meditation teacher, very well known and recognized meditation teacher in our movement. But he is one of those elders that we have in Tiratna, and it's just so rich and such a joy, and just seeing him, you know, after so many decades of being an order member and being exploring the Dharma, still finding new things and finding new meanings, and you know, going back to Bante's teachings and then sort of exploring them with a fresh spirit. That's very inspiring to me, and I'm still learning, and I've been learning a lot in the last 4 days. And I was saying to my teams today when we were meeting that I just realized that it's become too prolific in a way. It's a bit too much what I have to share with you. So I probably have enough material to lead a full day on Shraddha, but we don't have that amount of time tonight. But the important thing about this series is that we are going to be looking at these themes from different angles, yeah? And we are going to be looking at their relationships, and they overlap in many ways. So we probably are coming back to different threads that I'm going to be opening tonight. So some of you probably are familiar with the word synchronicity. Yeah? So is that those meaningful coincidences that occur mysteriously in our lives. So they're basically events that are too significant to be a mere day-to-day encounter. Yeah, it's just that doesn't feel like they happen by chance. Yeah? So when I'm exploring the Dharma, I usually get a lot of this experience of synchronicity. I start making connections, yeah, with many things, and I find that fascinating. It really engages my attention. Something that I have learned, though, and is very closely related with the quality that we are going to be exploring tonight, that of Shraddha, of faith, is that I sometimes make connections that are not there. Yeah. So there is another word for that. There's a word. The word is apophenia. Yeah. And apophenia is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. Yeah? And this is relevant for tonight's exploration because something that I have learned about myself is that I can have a bit of a tendency to blind faith. Yeah. So I can sometimes be very eager to believe in things. So, and the balance that we're trying to strike tonight is that of openness, and at the same time some level of rigorosity, you know, in the way that we engage with the Dharma. And the title of the series is the Mandala of Personal Development. So this idea of the mandala is an idea as well that is a fundamental way for me of looking at relations. Yeah. So Bodhinaya tonight read a very beautiful short poem from Bhante Sangarachita called 4 Gifts. It's very widely known in Triratna. So I don't know if you are relatively new to Triratna, probably it's the first time that you heard that poem. If you've been around for a while, it's not the first time that you heard to it. And in this poem, Bhante is offering 4 different gifts. I must say that it took me a few years to figure out what the gift meant. So I'm not going to give them away. I think that's part of the journey of being involved with Triratna. You need to find out what the gifts meant or mean. But I want to refer to a series of talks that Bhante gave in 1976 called Buddhism for Today and Tomorrow. And that series of talks were given when the movement, what is today the Triratna Buddhist community, was 9 years old. So the movement was founded in 1967. And the first gift, the lotus flower, has to do with the idea of this series, yeah? This mandala of personal development. So I would recommend you, if you have the time and you are curious, to listen to the first talk in that series from Bhante called A Method of Personal Development. Yeah? So that quote that Bodhinaya read on development at the beginning, when Bhante talks of development as the law of life, is from that talk. And this idea of the mandala, it's is a metaphor in the Buddhist tradition around our human potential. Yeah. So the lotus flower is a symbol in a Buddhist tradition of our human potential. So when we look at figures, you know, like the figure that we have in the shrine right now, Vajrasattva at the center. Vajrasattva is sitting on a lotus flower, a white lotus flower. So the lotus flower can represent another level of consciousness, another level of reality, or it can represent the full realization of our potential, yeah, which is very important for the purpose of this series, yeah, that we are aware of that. I always use this image of the mandala that we formed tonight. Yeah, so I think tonight we are 26 people here, and we are forming a particular mandala, a particular configuration. Yeah. And this is a figure, a shape that I'm going to be calling back to during the series as well. So we are going to be looking at mandalas within mandalas in a way. Yeah. Those relations that Padmasaki was referring to. I'm going to try to organize them in a meaningful way for you. But yeah, this idea of development is very important. Bhante says something that is very important for us to remember, that development is individual. Yeah, it's a personal thing. So each of us engage with the Dharma, engage with the conditions that we find in our community in the way that serves us, yeah, in the way that helps us initially, at least, yeah? And from that development, from that personal relationship, something emerges. Bhante, basically, in that talk, A Method of Personal Development, Bhante is talking about the importance of us familiarizing ourselves with refined mental states. Yeah? So familiarizing our minds with more subtle mental states. And this is very important because in a way, we need to give a space, we need to give ourselves the chance to grow. Yeah. So dukkha, suffering, we can experience dukkha or suffering when we don't follow our desire to grow. Yeah. Our desire to transcend in a way. Oh, sorry, I did something here. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about these 5 spiritual faculties. Yeah. So when we talk about faculties, we are talking about something that in the Buddhist tradition is called indriya. And the word indriya refers to something that belongs to Indra, which in the Vedas is the ruler of the gods. In Buddhism, we use it more like a metaphor, like a myth. Yeah. So indriya in Buddhism is more like a controlling principle or a directive force. I also want to recommend you, I'm going to recommend many things during this series. So if you are very curious, you can just go back and look at things, especially from what we've been doing in Nottingham. Zach was referring to this online effort that we have made, to translate our classes into this format. And I really want to recommend wholeheartedly a talk given by Kusala Devi last week. I believe the title of the talk was The Root of Conflict and the Path to Freedom. And in that talk, Kusala Devi is exploring another association that this word faculty or Indriya can have, which is that the components of our experience. Yeah? So she was looking at the some of the skandhas, yeah? Looking at how we enter into contact with the world. There is a sensation that emerges and the process that follows. Yeah? The process of labeling and the process of responding to that. I'm not going to say more about that, just that prapancha was a key concept that Kusala Devi explored. And that's going to help us to look at views during this series. So I recommend you to look at that. I recommend you, if you have the time, just to look at the talks that we've been receiving from different order members in these Sangha nights. Karunavacha gave a very good talk a couple of weeks ago on identity, and that was really good. I just, there is plenty of material if you want to go deeper. I just want to show you now what is the idea of this series. So let me share my screen with you. Okay. So these are the 5 spiritual faculties. Yeah? The one that we're exploring tonight is faith or Shraddha. And we're going to be filling this graphic or this representation. The important thing here is that they come usually in pairs. Yeah? So I also want to explore this in a not so traditional way. Yeah. So the pairs, the traditional couples or pairs are wisdom and faith, and concentration and vigor. Yeah. And at the center we have mindfulness. So mindfulness is a balancing faculty between the pairs. Yeah. In this case, the way we are going to be navigating this series is we're going to start today with faith, and next week we move into virya or vigor. And we are going to be making relations, connections with other arrangements within the tradition. So there is a correspondence between the 5 spiritual faculties with the 5 Buddha Mandala. Yeah. So tonight we're entering the realm, the southern realm, if you want, the realm of Ratnasambhava and Mamaki. And I'm going to say a bit more later on when we are looking at faith directly. Let me just go. Yeah. Okay, so I better get into the topic of the evening, otherwise we're not going to have time for the groups. Yeah, and something that I want to share with you is that this is a teaching that is very meaningful to me. It's a teaching that I have explored. In a way, the spiritual life, the spiritual journey is about that. It's about finding a teaching that works for you and just go deeper with it. Yeah. So Bhante say at some point that we don't know. Every 2 weeks we don't know we don't need a new teacher. Need a new teaching. So he famously say more and more of less and less. So if we simplify, we just go, for example, at the moment we're doing a follow-up course, and the entire follow-up course, basically we're looking at the 5 precepts from a different angle. And it's so much that you can do whenever you engage with something, but you just try to go deeper. Bhante also says that you learn what it is you're trying to do in the process of trying to do it. Yeah. So the most important thing is that you engage with the process rather than thinking of the outcome. And that's the invitation that I want to extend to all of you, in this series. Just engage with it, and maybe at the end of the series, just decide if it works or not for you. And something else that will be helpful for you is this idea of the mandala in itself, how you apply that to your life. So that's another idea that we use in our courses here in Nottingham. In the introductory course and in the follow-up course, we usually encourage people to produce mandalas. So mandalas like this one, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so it's just an arrangement of concentric circles. That's one of the mandalas that I wrote in one of those introductory courses on Friday mornings a while ago. And you just try to figure out how it feels at the moment. You know, what is at the center of your life, and what the other elements of your life, how they are arranged in relation to that center. Yeah. So I probably will try to create a page where you can access some additional resources during this series. There's a very good material about mandalas written by Maitreya Bandhu that we can make available to you. But basically the main thing there is about what is at the center of your mandala. How is the center of your mandala? It could be the center determines the kind of mandala that you have in your life. Yeah. So it could be a broken mandala, it could be a despotic mandala, it could be a chaotic mandala, it can be an immature mandala, or it can be a transcendent mandala. Yeah. And that's just, you know, obviously it's a model that Artabandhu uses. Maitreya Bandhu. Okay, so let's talk about faith then. So the talk tonight is called A Confident Heart. I was playing with different titles when I was thinking of this series, and I was looking at, you know, what are the associations in our language with the word faith. So in many places, when you look at faith, the first association that comes is beliefs. Yeah, there is a very strong association between faith and beliefs. And I started just to find all these interesting expressions in English. You know, obviously, English is my second language, but I found this interesting. So in English, we have expressions like a leap of faith, yeah, a suspension of disbelief, a matter of faith, taking on trust. Yeah. So there is something there in the way we use these words in our language that is hinting at least a movement, an emotional movement in our beings towards something. Yeah. So it's in a way it's stretching ourselves in order to make something possible to happen. Yeah. So a leap of faith suggests that a suspension of disbelief. Obviously, is you decide not to scrutinize something in order to allow that, you know, a plot device to happen in whatever you are doing. A matter of faith or taking on trust is something has been asked of you that requires that you are not too rigorous intellectually with it. Yeah? Or that at least that's the assumption in our society. Yeah. So when we look at Strada, we need to start saying that, and this is something that probably many of you who have been around for a while have heard before. Faith is not a very satisfying translation of Strada. Yeah. Faith, in a way, just evokes one of the many meanings that Strada can have. So let's say that to begin with, Strada in the spiritual life functions as a base for sustained interest. Yeah. So if you have a conviction that something has value, and the desire to realize that value, to actualize that value in your life. Yeah. So in a way, it's a decision. It's not imposing on you in the Buddhist tradition. Yeah. It's a decision that you make based on your experience. So all of you, I think, like the Buddha, all of you who are here tonight have understood to some extent your potential for awakening. Yeah. So that's the reason why you are here tonight. The Buddha did that, or the Buddha to be did that. You know, he understood that there was a potential in him, and he had an emergency and the urgency of going into the world and doing something with that. Yeah. But faith, I mean, a way that we explore faith in Triratna, or Strada in Triratna, it has sort of three different aspects. Yeah? So we talk about lucid faith, or the intellectual aspect of faith. So for example, in Buddhism, there are no dogmas of faith. So you are not, nobody asks you just to believe something because there is a power that tells you that that's That's the way it is. Yeah. So one of the qualities of the Dharma is that of ehipassiko, yeah. Which literally means come and see. Yeah. So the Dharma has the nature of a personal invitation for you to come and see for yourself if this is true, if what the Buddha is saying is true. Yeah. So intellectual faith or lucid faith here is more about clarity, about lucidity. Yeah. So you feel very clear about your convictions, for example. Yeah. And this is very interesting. I mentioned a moment ago the immature mandala. Yeah. And the immature mandala is that happens to many of us that can be very idealistic. Yeah. So for example, we enter into contact with a system of ideas, an ideology, and we are very convinced that that system of idea explains the world we inhabit. Yeah. And I really like the way Maitreya Bando puts it. He says that a sign that your mandala is an immature mandala is how ready you are to hit people in the head with your beliefs, yeah, with your convictions. So there is something about this faith, this lucid faith, that is, you are very strongly convinced in a way. You know, there is a very strong sense of conviction, but you hold that in a light and relaxed way. Yeah? So you are not trying to preach. Yeah? There is no proselytism in Buddhism neither. Yeah? So we are not going around trying to convert people. So that's one of the elements of or the aspects of faith as we explore it in Tirana. The second aspect is affective or emotional faith, and this has to do a lot with desire and pleasure. So it's an experience of aesthetical appreciation, and this is a connection between faith and Ratnasambhava. Yeah. So Ratnasambhava is Ratnasambhava Mameki, the Buddhas of the South, the yellow Buddhas. They are usually linked with beauty. Yeah? And you can say that faith is an emotional response to the beauty of the ideal. Yeah? So you find the ideal beautiful, and it's something that you cannot contain. Your heart wants to follow the ideal. Yeah? Wants to move in that direction. We probably know that very well when we fall in love with somebody. Yeah, it's something that we cannot contain, that sense of moving in that direction. Yeah. So this is a similar emotion, but it's not personalized in anybody. It's to do with the principles, with the ideal, the values that the ideal represent. Yes, I might say something more about Ratnasambhava later on if we have the time. And then the third aspect is that of volitional, that will to arrange our lives in relation to the ideal. In a way, sort of follows from that aesthetical appreciation. So coming back to this idea of the lotus flower, yeah, you can say that aesthetical appreciation is happening now in the present moment. Yeah, everything is happening right now. You don't need anything else. Sangharacchita also talks about the greater mandala of aesthetical appreciation. Yeah, so it's a moment in which you are, in a way, outside time. Yeah, you are just fully present, and you can appreciate the beauty, the aesthetical beauty of the whole universe around you. You are not trying to justify your own existence. You are not trying to see things in terms of resources. You are not trying to see your life in terms of goals or objectives. So coming back to the volitional aspect, this faith, we call it the longing faith. So it's the volitional, the will and action around this. And we use another word, which is very important as well. It's one of those positive elements that are there in our mental states. It's called Chanda. I might make a version of this document available to you as well. I need to talk with our tech wizards, Zach and Gareth, to help me with it. So Chanda can be translated as interest, enthusiasm, eagerness. So for example, in Buddhism, we talk about Dharma Chanda. Yeah? Is that desire of going deeper for the Dharma, that passion, if you want, passion in the way that popularly we understand the word passion. And for example, this longing faith was very beautifully expressed in the times of the Buddha, when people heard the Buddha talking the Dharma, expounding the Dharma. People used to say something like, "Excellent, O Lord, most excellent." It is as if one were to set upright what had been overthrown, or to reveal what had been hidden, or to show the path to one who have gone astray, or to light a lamp in the darkness, so that those having eyes might see. Even so has the best forth the Dhamma in many ways. So it's something that enables you, enables that truth to resonate deeply in your experience, in your life. Okay, I want to show you something else that we're going to be exploring during this series, and it's those elements. Kusala Devi mentioned this as well in her talk last week. That there is a lot. It's interesting when we look at our mental states. Negative mental states are usually much more complex. It's a lot. It's a lot in the Buddhist tradition about how to identify, different mental states. It's very sophisticated, actually. This aspect of the Buddhist tradition. At the moment where I'm looking is the Abhidharma, and if you are interested in going deeper, so there's this book called Know Your Mind from Sangha, and it's an exploration of the Abhidharma, and the Abhidharma usually is called Buddhist psychology. Yeah. So last week we were looking a bit slightly to the kleshas, or the kleshas are called stains or contaminations or even poisons. Yeah. And we are through this series we're going to be looking at the kleshas as well. So the importance of looking at this is that our views are sustained by our emotions. So it's important that we identify what are the emotions that feed our views, and it's a sort of it's a cyclical process. It's like a sort of like a vice cycle, yeah, a vicious cycle, where our emotions create a response to the world, and we hang to it, we attach our identity to it, and then that creates an emotional response in itself that keeps feeding it in a cycle. Yeah. So let me show you this tree. Yeah. Okay. Great. So there's another figure. So we're talking about mandalas. We can talk about trees as well. Trees are very important in the Buddhist tradition as well. By the way, Chantika gave a beautiful talk about trees a while ago. Just saying that if you are interested. Yeah, this tree in particular is called the poisonous tree of the 6 kleshas. Yeah. Kleshas are poisons. They can be translated as poison. So this tree, the roots of these trees are, or is, something called avidya, one of the kleshas. So tonight we're going to be looking at 3 kleshas. Avidya is ignorance, but it's a very particular kind of ignorance. Yeah. It's the ignorance of it's not knowing, it's not wanting to know. Yeah. And sometimes it's even a very strong stubbornness that you know, that you have the answers. Yeah? So it's probably a close enemy to conviction, that is stubbornness around having the answers. Yeah? It's a willful ignorance. And then from the roots of this tree emerge other kleshas. Yeah? So one, we can say that the counterpart of faith is vicikitsa, or doubt, indecision. Yeah? So this is not an honest doubt. It's not that you genuinely you recognize that you don't know and you want to know more. It's more to do with keeping too many options open in your life. Yeah, that you, it's a problem with commitment, basically. Yeah, that you don't want to commit with anything. So you are moving from one thing to another. And then another klesha that becomes a problem in the area of faith is conceit, arrogance, and pride. And this is what I was saying before about the level of refinement or subtlety, yeah, sophistication in the Dharma. There's something very specific called mada, which has to do with intoxication or inflation. Yeah. So in the Kalama Sutta, if you have come across the Kalama Sutta, it's an encounter between the Buddha and a group of lay people. It's a tribe in the forest. They became, later on, they become disciples of the Buddha. The Buddha said to the Kalamas, because they were confused. I'm going to stop this. They were confused with a lot of people coming to their villages, you know, and just explaining the truth in different ways, and they didn't know how to follow that, how to you know, who they can believe or not. And the Buddha gave a very beautiful discourse where he's basically doing that ehipasiko. Yeah? He's encouraging the Kalamas to trust their experience, yeah? To go back to their sense of morality, natural morality, to their sense of understanding that action has consequences, you know. And so the questions that the Buddha asked the Kalamas is, if somebody acts in this way, what are the consequences of those actions? Yeah? But also the Buddha says, well, you have your experience, but also you need the advice of the wise. So you need those two elements. So with this klesha that I mentioned a moment ago, mada, which is a very, very particular application of conceit, of arrogance, this intoxication, this inflation, you believe that you don't need the guide of anybody. Yeah. So you have your moral compass, you have your ideals or ideas, your values, and that's enough. That's the only thing that you believe. You only believe in yourself. You don't believe in anybody else. So that's the kind of intoxication, inflation that we are talking about. When we are talking about faith, we need receptivity. We need that relationship with somebody who has more experience, somebody who is wiser. Okay, and coming back to the title of the talk, is A Confident Heart. So it's a very beautiful, something that in the Buddhist tradition is encouraged, is that you believe in the powers of the Buddha. It's a very traditional thing. And there are a few things that I admire about the Buddha. There's something that I admire about the Buddha to be, is that he encountered these 5 spiritual faculties in the process of searching for a teacher. Yeah. So in the Aryapariyesana Sutta, or translated sometimes as the discourse of the noble quest, the Buddha relates that process of when he started his journey of finding these teachers in the forest. And there is a teacher in particular that he mentions in that sutta, Arada Kalama. Yeah. And he learned something from these teachers. Yeah. It wasn't like the Buddha to be knew everything. But something very important there, you know, is trusting your experience. And this is a very beautiful example of that. So the Buddha said to himself, Arada Kalama, or the Buddha to be in this case, Arada Kalama has faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. This is how he has mastered these teachings. But I have these qualities too. If I make the same effort, perhaps I can realize these teachings for myself. So the Buddha wasn't put off by encountering somebody more developed than him. He was actually encouraged, or the Buddha to be again, encouraged by that. There's an earlier example as well of the Buddha, another power of the Buddha. So that power that I mentioned just a moment ago is that of receptivity. Another power of the Buddha is the power of overcoming fear. Yeah. And that's something that the Buddha mentions a lot early in his quest, before becoming the Buddha. He talks about fear. He talks, for example, of being in the forest. There in the darkness, or the moon casts shadows, I will hear an animal approaching, or a peacock will break off a twig, or the wind will rustle the fallen leaves. And I thought, is this it coming now, the fear and dread? And what he says is that he waited. Whenever he experienced that fear, he just waited. He didn't move. If he was standing, he remained standing. If he was walking, he kept walking. If he was laying down, he remained laying down. He didn't try to escape the emotion that was emerging, just staying with it until the emotion passed. Yeah. Which is something that I really admire, that relationship with fear. The Buddha say as well in the Atadanda Sutta, fear is born from arming oneself. Just see how many people fight. I'll tell you about the dreadful fear that caused me to shake all over, seeing creatures flopping around like fish in water too shallow, so hostile to one another. Seeing this, I became afraid. And he says more. This world completely lacks essence. It trembles in all directions. I long to find myself a place on a sketch, but I could not see it. Seeing people locked in conflict, I became completely distraught. But then I discerned here a thorn, hard to see, lodged deep in the heart. It's only when pierced by this thorn that one runs in all directions. So if that thorn is taken out, one does not run and settles down. So that thorn in the heart, dukkha can feel like that, like a thorn in our hearts. And realizing that thorn is in our hearts is a good thing. Yeah. Is part of the journey. So something in this aspect of Shraddha is that in a way we can learn to welcome suffering, to welcome dukkha. Yeah. Dukkha reminds us of that motivation, or that basic intention, that basic instinctual response that we have of trying to shake it off, trying to run away, trying to escape. But the good news is that we can become stronger, we can become more resilient. I'm just realizing that it's almost 10 past, and this is just the introduction. So I'm just going to finish with something, which is something very beautiful about faith. So I mentioned these three different aspects. So I mentioned the longing faith, the lucid faith, and this sort of a faith in terms of appreciation or emotional response to the beauty of the ideal. This movement, when we feel fear, when we experience a thorn in our hearts, can be, in a way, sometimes we experience that as escapism. Yeah, we're trying to move away, we're trying to run away from something. But that's the very same movement, the very same energy that we can channel in our going for refuge, in our response to the three yuls. So faith, when we apply faith to the three yuls, we can apply different aspects as well of faith. So we can have this emotional factor of faith, including that volitional element, towards the Buddha, to the jewel of the Buddha, to the jewel of the enlightenment. that intellectual factor towards the Dharma. Yeah. And there is a factor that I wanted to explore tonight. I'm not going to have time, but it's a social factor of faith, which has to do with Sangha. But maybe the main thing that I want to say here is that our views determine the way that we relate to others. Yeah. So it's very important that we look, that the most important aspect of faith in this area is that we believe in the law of karma. We believe that our actions have consequences. Yeah. And that we look at that, we look at the effect that we have on others, and especially believe that yes, it's possible that we have an effect on others. No, don't think that your actions don't have consequences, don't have repercussions in the world. I'm going to stop there, otherwise you're not going to have time for the groups.